All right, we are live, everybody. Welcome to On to the Next One, following UFC 286. Appreciate you guys checking out the program as we're discussing the aftermath of UFC 286 from a matchmaking perspective. We are back on this Sunday morning. I am Mike Heck, and the matchmaking crowns are back following the UFC's return to London. And speaking of crowns, let us introduce the Prince of Positivity himself. He is the co-host, the co-matchmaker, and he's our best friend, damn it. Let us say hello to Mr. Alexander K. Lee. Good morning, AK. Happy Sunday.
Hello, Mike. Thank you. Hello, Mike, my best friend. Yeah, and I'm feeling pretty positive. Listen, I know we're going to talk about this for sure. I think it's going to pop up in the comments a lot. It certainly did even before yesterday's show. Our preview show, a lot of comments about a certain individual who made their unexpected return over the weekend. And, you know, some people might not be feeling super positive about where said person has been positioned in the welterweight title picture following last night's main event. Some people will be super positive about it, though. I will say there's a lot of supporters of this man out there. So again, that I may be speaking for myself and some members of the media and some critics, but hey, the common man, a lot of the common man seems to enjoy the work of one Mr. Chaos, Colby Covington, Colby Chaos Covington, and whatever you want to call him. So who am I to judge? Who am I to judge and say that's a negative? That might have been the cherry on top of what was a pretty good pay-per-view. You know, not top to bottom, not a pay-per-view that we're going to remember probably as one of the best events of the year, but some compelling storylines and some good results for a lot of veterans who I think myself and several others might have been counting out.
Yes, and yeah, the Colby thing has been incredible in terms of reaction. It's been the biggest story since Friday. Colby just being in London and getting the shot. People are asking if I'm in the hotel lobby. You're darn right I'm in the hotel lobby because that's where all the action is. You never know what's going to happen on this live show. So here's how this is going to work. We'll talk about each of these fights. If you have matchmaking suggestions for the fighter that we are discussing, throw them in the chat. We'll pull them up on the screen. And then at the end, we'll take like 10, 15 minutes. We'll just run the gauntlet of all of your different matchmaking suggestions, mostly in terms of fights we have not discussed. So you mentioned it, AK. Colby Covington announced by Dana White as the next in line for welterweight champion. Leon Edwards defeats Kamaru Usman. A lot of scorecard discussion when it comes to this, but I think the judges, I think there's only two ways you could score this fight. You could score it a draw, 47-47. I don't think you could score this fight for Kamaru Usman. I just don't see it. I don't. If you want to make the case, sure. But I scored it 4-1 for Leon. I thought he lost the second round. I thought he won 1, 3, 4, and 5. Obviously, he lost the point in the third. So 48-46 how I scored it. If you scored it 3-2 for Leon in a draw, I got no issue with that card. Didn't really see it for Usman. I just think Leon did a lot more in terms of damage, and Usman was pushing forward. Usman was going for takedowns, but even when he got him, he couldn't hold Leon down and do a lot of damage with them. So it looks like we're getting Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington. Do you think this is the fight that is actually going to happen, especially with Masvidal and Burns about to fight? Because you know if Jorge wins that fight, I just don't see how that is not an option at this point, especially to make this announcement around 3 weeks before this fight's even going to happen. But Dana, the UFC seems steadfast. It's going to be Colby. Do you think when Leon steps foot in that octagon again, he will fight Colby Covington?
I'm really kind of hoping this is one of those Dana says moments where, listen, the UFC president has a sketchy track record of guaranteeing things, saying something's definitely going to happen, something's never going to happen, and then that thing ends up happening or not happening, if you know what I mean. Like he makes these broad statements, rarely makes matches on fight night. That's a lot of people are mentioning this in the comments. A lot of people were saying this in social media last night. Oh, I thought he doesn't make fights on fight night. And yeah, this is it was very strange that he's so adamant. We know he's a fan of Colby Covington. We know they align philosophically in many ways. So it's not all that surprising that he's, willing to put Colby in that position. They clearly value him as a competitor, possibly as a draw as well. I've always been skeptical as to like how much of a draw is he. I think he's done some decent ratings on fight nights. There's no real proof that he's this big pay-per-view draw. But on the other hand, we don't have a lot of concrete pay-per-view data to work with over the last couple of years, sort of since the ESPN era started. So I don't know. Maybe he's a bigger draw than I think. If you ask Colby, he's the number one draw in the business. Maybe that's all that matters to Dana White. He talks a big game. And that's the sort of thing Dana and a lot of the suits of the UFC appreciate. So I will say it's a better than good chance. If I had to bet, if it's strictly like yes or no, and I got to bet like $20, I'll lean towards yes. I'll lean towards that it is going to happen. I don't know why. Again, I'm normally someone who's very skeptical when Dana White makes these declarations, but as soon as Colby kind of showed up to weigh in, it just felt like there was something funny in the air. And as you said, Mike, whether we think he deserves it or not, there is some kind of buzz when this guy shows up, when this guy does interviews, when he fights, when he does press conferences. I'm not saying that views always translate directly into pay-per-view buys or television, but we do know as far as social media goes, he has traction there. And listen, that is a metric that businesses have to take into account. So there is some interest when this guy shows up. Again, I cannot deny it. I think denying it would just be false. It would be false. So I certainly don't want to see it happen. He doesn't deserve it. To quote Damon, our pal Damon Martin, LOL, Bilal wins 9 in a row, knocks out Sean Brady, and he has to fight Shavkat. Colby sits out for a year after beating Masvidal, who was on a 3-fight losing streak, and equals a title shot. And when you lay it out like that, it's completely absurd. But MMA is the circus of absurdity. And if Colby Covington was announced for a title shot in the next 2 weeks, I mean, would any of us be surprised?
I've been trying to tell you guys on Heck of a Morning that if Leon wins this fight, Colby was in play. I didn't think he'd be next, but there we are. I do think this fight's going to happen. And I do think the more people are negative about it, the more that it's going to be pushed into happening. So I do think this fight's going to happen. So that is, I guess, my official pick. I know Dana talked about it, but like you said, just because Dana says it, it doesn't mean that it's 100%. We've seen it even with like actual fight announcements from the UFC. Just because they announce a fight does not mean that it's done. Sometimes it's done for negotiations and different things. But I do think, especially the response Colby got on Friday, he was the biggest story of the week. Him stepping on that scale on Friday was the biggest story of the week, heading into a big trilogy fight for all the marbles. And that goes to show you. And Dana probably didn't even expect that. I mean, when he did that scrum on Friday, you could tell, like, he didn't expect the buzz Colby got. And I think that just kind of pushed it over the edge even more. So there you go. I think that's where we're going to end up going here. Now, if Masvidal just obliterates Gilbert Burns, maybe that changes the discussion. But I don't know. I think we're going to see Leon fight Colby next.
We're not even doing our friends forever on this. Again, it showed up as the backup. Dana White said it's probably going to happen. There's really no predicting happening here. If you're doing a crystal ball pick, it's a pretty strong crystal ball pick. If you're doing magic wand, then obviously I'm leaning towards Burns Masvidal winner. It just makes so much more sense. Both guys, Burns definitely more deserving. Masvidal, not so much. Masvidal probably even less deserving than Colby, frankly. Unless he beats Gilbert, that'd be huge. But let's not forget, Colby did beat Jorge pretty convincingly in their most recent fight, even though it was over a year ago now. But the most important thing Masvidal has is that he has that history with Leon. And I still think that's there. I know there's people who will be like, that happened so long ago now. Are we still talking about the 3-piece in the soda? And yeah, people still talk about 3-piece in the soda. It gets referenced all the time. I see people, anytime someone lands a combination of on the regional scene, I'm doing missed fists. So many three-piece in the soda references on Twitter and things like that. So yeah, people still remember it. There's just a very strong, legitimate beef there. Covington, for sure. There's heat there with him and Edwards as well. He's invented the whole asinine Leon Scott thing. I can't believe I'm even repeating it. It's so dumb, but it's so dumb that people grabbed onto it. That's how this business works. But yeah, I would much rather see Burns or Masvidal. Burns because he's much more deserving than both these guys. Masvidal because, man, I've always wanted to see him, Leon, actually properly throw down in the cage, and now's the time to do it. So yeah, just talking about these two possible contenders makes me even more down on the possibility of the likely possibility of Covington getting that title shot.
It's getting a little crazy down here, so we'll continue on.
I knew it would.
I knew it. I mean, they knew the show was happening, so here we go. Kamaru Usman, he's in a weird place, AK, because I have no idea how the UFC views him, like, in this picture overall, and obviously he won't get a title shot at any point with Leon as the champion, but if they do put this Edwards-Colby Covington fight together and Colby wins, Usman has 2 wins over Colby, and I know for a fact Colby would love to try to get one of those wins back, so I could see a world where he just calls out Kamaru to run it back one more time. But despite being the second best welterweight of all time, Usman's probably going to have to win a fight either way because he's just not like a massive star and he doesn't have like a lot of the same momentum with the casual audience that some of these other fighters have in this division. So he'll take a step back, certainly. I had 2 options here. One, last night I actually felt pretty good about it. The other, I actually kind of see the UFC doing this, or at least trying to do it. So my original thought was a name that you brought up earlier. Like Usman takes a break. There's a guy in the division healing up from an injury. Maybe do Usman versus Sean Brady. Like, I think that's an interesting fight. But what I landed on is Kamaru Usman versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, because Wonderboy's coming off the big win versus Kevin Holland. And if Wonderboy at 40 years of age wants one last run at the belt, and it seems that he does, beating Usman would put him in a pretty damn good spot. And Wonderboy is very, very popular. So I landed on that. Yes, Usman is more of a wrestler. Wonderboy says he doesn't really want to fight a wrestler, but there's much more to gain from Wonderboy fighting Usman than he would fighting a Shavkat Rakhmonov or a Khamzat Chimaev or somebody like that. So that's my pick. What you got?
Mike, start queuing up that music and tell that hotel lobby to shut up. Because I'm also going with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. 1, 2, 3, 4. Friends forever. Yes, it's a great matchup. There's a lot of other options. Again, if you're Kamaru, there's people who have been calling to fight you for years. You know, when you're on top, they might not be so eager to fight you now that you're still, again, probably one of the top 3 welterweights in the world. Very difficult matchup for anyone, and now don't have a title on the line. Like now, you fight Usman, you're not guaranteed that pay-per-view championship cash boost. So some people will be more reluctant. I don't think Wonderboy is one of them. I think Wonderboy has always thought that could match up well with Usman. Again, this kind of talk came when Usman was the title holder, so it could have just been Wonderboy again trying to get that title fight. But as far as high risk big names go, this is about as good as it gets. Like, it doesn't make sense for Stephen Thompson to fight some of the lesser known wrestlers in the welterweight division. There are a lot of grapplers who, again, we've seen can give him problems, but if you're talking again a top 3 guy, I think it makes a lot of sense. And listen, Thompson would have a long shot. I think he'd be at least like plus 200, plus 250, maybe plus 200 by the time fight night rolls around, just based on how we've seen his fights go against people who can wrestle lately. But, you know, Kamaru's kind of diversified his game. There was a stretch there where he really wanted to prove that, you know, I'm a well-rounded striker too. I can box as well. And the results were mostly positive. So if you try to do that with Stephen Thompson, then it's a pretty even fight. If we see, a little bit more of we saw on Saturday, we saw Kamaru kind of going more and more to his wrestling as the fight went along, then it's going to be a bad night for Wonderboy. But either way, yeah, that's a high wattage fight. The UFC should be really, really interested in putting that together. That's a pay-per-view co-main event. I don't know. You throw it on there. I think so. I would hope it. I think both guys are beyond fight nights at this point, at least as far as that matchup goes. Mike, what did you think of maybe, and I'll probably bring up this name later, RDA?
I could see that. Look, yeah. I see a lot of people in the comments, oh, he should fight Shavkat. He's not going to fight Shavkat. Usman is not fighting Shavkat Rakhmonov. He'd rather, like, what does he gain from fighting Shavkat Rakhmonov? Nothing. Gains nothing from fighting Shavkat Rakhmonov. He's on the tail end of his career. He wants fun. He wants fights with relevant guys that, I don't know. He's just a weird place. Like, I guess there's really no wrong answer here, but if you think Kamaru Usman's going to be like, you know what would be a fun fight? That Shavkat Rakhmonov fight. Why would he take that fight? Why would he take that fight? Makes no sense.
No, if he does, he's the man.
He is the Usman, man.
If they say, Usman, you got to fight Shavkat in a fight that probably doesn't even guarantee him a title, like another shot at the world title, and he just says, yeah, I'm just going to do it for the challenge. big applause for Kamaru Usman. I don't know how people feel about him, whether you're a fan of his or not. I don't see how anyone could hate him if he took a fight with Shavkat. Like, again, the most dangerous man, one of the most dangerous guys at 170 right now, and who, again, doesn't have a lot of cachet with the casual audience. So Usman, among the hardcores, again, we give him a ton of respect if he gets it, but it's not like people, it's not like Shavkat's a household name, and Usman would have so much to lose in that matchup. The other name I was thinking was Neil Magny. You take the guy with the most wins in welterweight history versus one of the best, welterweights in MMA history. I don't know. Maybe just it's a winnable matchup for Usman, but that to me doesn't scream pay-per-view, like big pay-per-view fight. That's the only problem. It's missing.
If he wants to fight like one more time, like if it's like, all right, I'm just gonna do one more, then maybe that one makes sense. But if he wants to like keep this train going, yeah, I think Wonder Boy's all right. Like, I don't think it's a bad pick. A lot of people saying Bilal, but it seems like they're gonna give Shavkat to Bilal. I mean, if we're taking Dana at his word, Bilal's fighting Shavkat Rakhmonov, and we've been saying on this show for a while that if Leon Edwards wins, that's who Bilal Muhammad's going to have to fight. So that's where we're at right now. We shall see. I don't know. Listen, Usman's in a weird spot. We can't look at Kamaru Usman as a 3-fight-a-year kind of a guy right now. He's the second best welterweight of all time. His legacy is set in stone. He was a long-reigning champion. Leon's the champ, so he ain't getting a title shot as long as Leon's the title holder. I don't know.
He might take the rest of the year off. I would not be surprised if Kamaru Usman doesn't fight again this year.
Yeah, that might have been his last fight ever. He might have been his last.
I think he fights again, but I wouldn't listen. He's made a lot of money, a lot of title fights, made a lot of money. His reputation is again, whatever happens. I know is MMA. If you hang around too long, people start to like nitpick you and question your credentials and your legacy. But for me, it's like, let's just take this chunk of Kamaru's career, the 15 straight victories, the 5 straight title defenses. Okay, he's lost twice to Leon. That's fine. But he's, again, at worst, we said this going in, the result of Saturday doesn't change this. He is, as of now, the second best welterweight of all time. If he wants to become the greatest ever, I mean, he'd have to go on a hell of a second run, winning the title back and then defending it a few more times. And that's a lot of work for a guy who turns 36 in May. Again, has accomplished a lot, has made a lot of money. I think has the option to just retire and live comfortably without taking further damage, should he choose to do so. And listen, I'd love to see Kamaru fight again. But if he doesn't, or at the very least doesn't fight again this year, wouldn't surprise me at all. And if, again, I said with like sort of betting the Colby thing, with Colby get a title shot, I feel the same way with Usman. If you're asking me, will he fight again in 2023? Yes, just straight up yes or no answer. I would actually lean towards no. I don't think he fights again this year.
AK Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fizev was so much fun. Like, what a compelling fight!
Shocker.
In the end, Gaethje showing some technical prowess in the third round. They took that chaotic style, kind of toned it down a little bit, landed jabs. He was floating out there. It was impressive stuff. And that third round in particular was enough to get him the win on the cards. Even got him a 10-8 round from one awful judge who judged a lot of fights on this card and had a lot of questionable scorecards. But it was a great fight. I feel the stocks of both guys rose from it. But Gaethje said what he wants. He wants a rematch with either Dustin Poirier or Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira is obviously booked to fight Beneil Dariush on May 6th, so less than 2 months from right now. So are we doing Poirier? Are we doing Oliveira? Or are you going a different direction here?
Poirier is the obvious pick, so of course I went in a different direction. I also don't like the Oliveira match. I think it's too soon. Plus, listen, there's no guarantee Oliveira wins that, unless Gaethje's saying I want Oliveira win or lose, because he said I love Beneil Dariush. He said I guess I don't know if they're friends or he's just a big fan or they've trained together, but either way, he said he really doesn't want to fight Beneil. He did use the words "I love that guy," so pretty strongly does not want to fight Beneil if he wins. So Oliveira win or lose, especially if Oliveira loses, I don't know why Gaethje would necessarily want to take that one again. It really wasn't that long ago that they fought, and Poirier 2 just makes a hell of a lot of sense. I'll talk about that more in a second. But I will say I have to stick with a previous pick I had made after Mateusz Gamrot's most recent win. I said he should get the winner of this fight, so I won't back off from that. The matchmaking has been made for me, so it would be Gamrot Gaethje grappler versus striker matchup for me next. That's a sort of more of a magic wandy pick. I'd be a little surprised if that is how this shakes out.
I'm going with the Poirier rematch. They're going to make that fight. So I'm going for the cheap no point. They're going to make it. Poirier will take it. Poirier will be up for it. Yeah. And both guys are in title contention right now. They are. With Islam as the champ, both guys are in title contention right now. The winner of that fight, it would not surprise me if they got a title shot in 2024 coming off of that one. So you could do it in Abu Dhabi. That could be on that 280 card when Islam fights whoever he fights. Or you could put it on the same card as the Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler fight, because that would be pretty cool. So plenty of time to make that one, but I think that's the direction they're going to go. It's an absolute freaking firefight.
It's got to be on pay-per-view this time. I mean, I'd love to if it was on free TV for people, but I think they've come to the level that this should be a pay-per-view co-main event at a main card at the very least. The last time they fought, Mike, UFC on Fox 29, April 14th, 2018, at the then Gila River Arena in Glendale, Arizona, now the Desert Diamond. This was a long time ago. When I was thinking about picking this one, I was like, has it been that long? Yes, it's been 5 years. It'll be 5 years come April. They main evented. Dustin Poirier beat Justin Gaethje, 4th round TKO, and one of the best fights of the year. I don't know if it won MMA Fighting's Fight of the Year. It won, but it definitely won.
I believe it did.
Yeah,
I believe it did.
It did on several websites, I believe. The co-main was supposed to be Carlos Condit and Matt Brown. That fight didn't happen. Alex Oliveira stepped in and actually beat Carlos Condit. Israel Adesanya and Marvin Vettori won. That was a main card, free main card fight on Fox. And Michelle Waterson was also on the main card. Still just Michelle Waterson at the time. She was married, but had not added on the Gomez yet. So yeah, it's a weird card to look at. Brad Tavares, Christoph Jocko in their middleweight prime. Mike, what a matchup! What a matchup that was. Gilbert Burns on the Fight Pass prelims. This was a long time ago. So it does feel like Arjun Bular, heavyweight champion Arjun Bular was on the prelims, the Fight Pass prelims, losing by omoplata to Adam Wieczorek. I know I butchered that name. Apologies to all the Polish listeners out there. That was a long time ago. We're definitely in the area where we can run it back.
Yeah. Fight is going to be incredible. Gunnar Nelson got the fight to the ground against Brian Barberena, and once he did, the fight played out the way most people expected it to. It's okay. Yes.
Here you go.
Thank you.
I'll put it in.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, live television, everyone. Live television. Let's go. For the podcast listeners,
I had it over there. Yes.
Something just got knocked off of Mike's desk or work area. Mike, are you okay?
I'm okay. I'm okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes. People just want to hear our matchmaking suggestions live here in New York City.
Someone got a little too excited. Yeah, someone got a little too excited.
But as soon as the fight got to the ground, Gunnar Nelson did what we thought he was going to do and submits Brian Barberena. The St. Paddy's Day weekend warrior, Gunnar Nelson, always fights on the St. Paddy's Day weekend, it seems, if you go back through his Tapology page. But this was pretty easy for me. He was supposed to fight Daniel Rodriguez on this card originally before D-Rod had an injury. He's going to be out. So let's just rebook that one. Thoughts on where Gunnar Nelson goes? And look, just to say, because I know I promised to get another microphone. We tried. I had it hooked up, and then it just didn't work. So we're stuck where we're at right now. So what do you want me to do? All right. What do you want me to do? We deal with the elements. AK, I'm going Gunnar Nelson versus D-Rod. What say you?
Yeah, I think that's the easy choice. Listen, Gunnar Nelson is not the most active fighter, so we can certainly wait for Daniel Rodriguez, to recover from his what's sidelined him. So I don't mind that. I went with a more, just in my mind, a fight I really want to see. And again, I know this man is saying I am a welterweight from now on, so I assume he's not being super picky with his welterweight matchups. So I don't know if he'd prefer a top 15 fighter, but I would love to see Gunnar Nelson and RDA, Rafael dos Anjos fight. It's where was it? This is essentially the we both beat Brian Barberena, so now we must fight each other. As I which is it's a great title. It's a great title to have. Who is the better fighter who beat Brian Barberena recently? So that's another unofficial belt we're making. But otherwise, I just think stylistically, and we're these guys are in their careers. It's a fun matchup. Again, I don't know if it quite tickles RDA's fancy, but I can't imagine him saying just flat out saying no if they offered him Gunnar Nelson, on a prominent spot in a card somewhere. So yeah, hit me up with that. Maybe the next trip to London. I don't know. Maybe the next trip to London if Gunnar Nelson's ready for that, we can have him and RDA fight there. It could be fun.
Yeah, it's not a bad matchup at all. So we'll see what happens. Jennifer Maia killed some parlays. AK saw it all over Twitter. She just killed a bunch of them. A lot of people thought she'd be the next sort of stepping stone for Casey O'Neill, and the wily veteran said, "Not today, folks. We're not going to do that." She looked great. Casey obviously is a dog, very competitive, but Maia was moving around great. Landed the most strikes she's ever landed in a fight. She gets it done, and now we can do Casey O'Neill versus Joanne Wood, but that's besides the point. We can settle that beef. But where does Jennifer Maia go after getting her second straight victory, AK?
Yeah, I think Jennifer Maia broke up our dear Jed Meshu's Scottish parlay, if I'm not mistaken, because what do we have here? Joanne Wood, who was from Scotland on the card. We had Joanne Wood, Chris Duncan was successful. I want to say Casey O'Neill was the last leg on that. Yes, I believe Casey O'Neill was the last leg, and probably the leg that he was most confident about. I don't know. I was listening to No Bets Barred. I can't remember if he was that confident about it. Though a lot of us agreed that Jennifer Maia, the odds were a little bit disrespectful, and she certainly proved that. So even though I had picked O'Neill to win, man, I should not have been surprised that Jennifer Maia did what she did and won a pretty convincing decision against the 2021 MMA Fighting Rookie of the Year. But listen, tough to come back from any injury. Casey O'Neill's gonna be fine. I went with Caitlin Chukagian trilogy, Mike. Too many unanswered questions. No, I'm kidding. I would never pray that someone gets Chukagian once, much less twice, which Jennifer Maia already has. And imagine if she had to go through that horrible ordeal a third time. I'll go with Amanda Ribas. Amanda Ribas kind of bouncing between 125, 115. She doesn't seem to have a problem fighting it either. I don't know where to place her. I think I have her ranked in both divisions. She just is a really strong and consistent fighter, a good fight finisher. So let's see what she does against Maia. If she's really serious about making a run at a UFC title, maybe it's a 125, and that'd be a good test for her.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid pick. I think John Ray just put this out there. I think Lauren Murphy makes a lot of sense. You got two vets, two past title challengers. Makes more sense now that Alexa Grasso is the champion. So there would be some divisional stakes in that fight. So, and oddly enough, these two have never fought each other before, which is crazy to think about. And Lauren had a little bit of beef with Jennifer Maia getting a title shot over her when Maia fought for the belt. So we get some sound clips from Lauren Murphy's big rant to the media in Abu Dhabi. So you got some stuff there. Yeah, I think that fight makes some sense, and we'll go there. But 125 is pretty interesting right now, and there's a lot of different things. Yes, I know there's too much background noise, but what the hell do you want me to do? Main card kicked off with Marvin Vettori defeating Roman Dolidze. Unanimous decision. The 30-27 Vettori scorecard was just plain awful. This was a close fight. 30-27 Vettori just sucks diddly-ucks as far as the card goes. But it was pretty split. I looked at MMA decisions on this fight this morning, and it was pretty split down the middle. So I certainly don't think this is a robbery or anything. But middleweight it's interesting right now with Pereira's champion is getting ready to fight Adesanya again in 20 days. I kind of feel like they're going to do Vettori versus DDP, but I already went a different direction with DDP.
So I think we're going to be friends forever on this one.
I'm not doing DDP.
No, I'm not.
He's just in such a weird spot. Like, I don't know what to do with him. So this is probably outside of the box, and it probably won't happen. But just looking at it right now, if Chris Curtis beats Kelvin Gastelum, I think that's the fight they're going to do. But I'm not confident in any Marvin Vettori pick right now because Marvin's fought like everybody in this division. He's fought almost everybody. So, I mean, I just don't know what really else to do.
You said only if Chris Curtis beats Calvin Gastelum, not the other. You don't want to see Calvin Gastelum versus Vettori if Gastelum beats Chris Curtis.
You know what? Yes, I'll go with the winner of that fight.
Winner of that fight.
That's what I'm going to go with.
UFC,
Thank you, AK.
UFC 287. Yeah, cover your bases. I thought we were going to be friends forever for sure. I thought Jared Cannonier was like an obvious pick. I got that from a lot of listeners too. And I was just nodding my head. I'm like, yep, Jared Cannonier. Just rankings wise, they haven't fought. That fight might And this is just where the middleweight division like is kind of going. That might be a super terrible fight. I honestly don't know. I don't know how I don't know how people felt about the Vettori Delice fight. I mean, by the end of it, Michael Bisping said the fight was fantastic. I was kind of, as people know, when we're doing fight nights, we're working. We're kind of working and mostly watching, but there's just a few balls we're juggling. We can't quite focus on it as a spectator as much as we'd like to. I didn't find the fight particularly compelling. It was a very middleweighty matchup, considering these are ranked guys. Normally, it shouldn't be that middleweighty, but that's what happens in this division. It doesn't matter how good you are, how skilled you are. You get in there with another 185er and something just becomes this weird blob. And I think that might happen with Vettori and Cannonier as well. But listen, both guys are in the top 10, top 7, I'd say. And it just makes sense to have them been matched up. And, it's just a good fight to keep both guys in that contender circle and see who's closer to maybe getting a title shot.
Yeah. It's such like, I thought about doing the Cannonier fight, but that might be for like the Hall of Fame middleweight title. Like that is such a middleweighty fight, those two guys. So I saw some people say like, well, Vettori is an Extreme Couture guy now. He's trained there, but even he said leading in, like he wasn't representing Extreme Couture. He had Dewey Cooper in his corner, and I think Delice is more Extreme Couture-ish than Marvin was. So I don't think that really comes into question here. I just think he worked there for a little bit. And Marvin's trained pretty much everywhere. So at this point, like anybody he fights, it's probably somebody he's trained with at this point. So it's a weird, he's all over the place.
He doesn't strike me as I will never fight such and such person guy. I'm sure someone can throw an exception, but I don't imagine he's like that.
Yes. So now we got to go to the wild card round, AK. We're going to select one fighter we have not match made for yet, and we will match make for them right now. And then we're going to turn it over to the peeps. And then you guys can just start firing off different matchups. We'll pull them up on the screen. We'll react to some of them, and we'll take as many as we can. So, AK, who is your wild card selection for UFC 286?
Much like Leon Edwards did several times in the main event on Saturday, I kind of cheated here, Mike. I kind of cheated here a little bit. I had asked you before that, we're planning the show, and I'm like, should we do, of course, we're going to do the main event winner and loser. Should we also do the same for the co-main? And we kind of agreed, let's just do the winner. So only Gaethje. But because the wild card rule, we can do whatever we want. I do want to make a matchup for Rafael Fizev. And I'm even doing some more finagling here because some pieces have to fall into place for this to happen. I really want Fiziev to fight Drew Dober. I need to see this. Drew Dober is booked to fight Matt Frevola at UFC 288 on May 6th. That is not a guaranteed win for Drew Dober at all. Matt Frevola is a really difficult matchup, but Dober will be favored, and I will pick him to win now. I know it's a long way to go before that fight actually rolls around, but should it stay together and I have to make a prediction, I won't change it. I'm picking Dober because I want him to fight Fiziev. That would just be... I know we're spoiled. We just got Fiziev and Gaethje, and now we've got little Gaethje Jr., if you want to speak of Dober in such reductive terms. But that fight would just be so insane. And yeah, listen, a good opportunity again for both. It's, relevant in the rankings, I would think, especially if Dober gets that win. I don't know where he is in the rankings right now, but it's got to be solidly in the top 15 if he beats Frevola. And Fiziev would be a super excellent matchup for him coming off that. He might even call for it. I could see him beating Frevola and calling for that if Fiziev already isn't, like, if there's already a fight for Fiziev in the works.
That fight would be sick. I like that fight a lot. So I want to think a little bit outside of the box. It was nice to see Lerone Murphy back in there yesterday. Great fight with Gabriel Santos. I said that would be the low-key banger, and I seemed to be correct on that one. A lot of people like Gabriel Santos won that fight. I'm not really hating on it. But Lerone Murphy shaking off some of that rust, gets the victory. I went with Lerone Murphy versus Alex Caceres, AK. I know Bruce Leroy was supposed to fight next week at UFC San Antonio against Nate Landwehr. Caceres had to withdraw for some reason. So when Alex is ready to come back, let's give Lerone Murphy a fight with number 15 ranked Alex Caceres, because I think it would be ridiculously fun. And I just want to see Lerone Murphy kind of make up for lost time if he can, because just when you think he's starting to get going, he just slows down, or there's injuries, he's out for a while. So I want to see if this is a year where he can fight multiple times, and let's give him some opportunities with some fun matchups. And let's just see what this guy can do. A lot of people have been very high on him for a while. I know I'm one of those guys. So let's go ahead and do that fight. What do you think?
I thought you would have gone with Lerone Murphy versus God, because I don't know what Lerone Murphy did in a past life, if you believe in that sort of thing, or what he did in this life to deserve something that's happened to him. We all know, of course, well documented, that he was shot in the face before becoming, I think it was before becoming an MMA fighter. Before even becoming a fighter. That's like one great horrible thing that's it for your life. You got shot in the face. Nothing bad like that should ever happen to you. And then he just recently said, going to this fight, he got into a pretty serious car accident. It's one of the things that's kept him on the shelf. He hasn't fought since October 2021. So I don't know. I don't believe in luck or anything like that. You guys know that. But there's some bad juju surrounding Lerone Murphy, and hopefully he's just healthy. I love the suggested matchup, Mike, but hopefully he's just healthy. I just want to see him fight 3 times in 2023 would be a miracle. He hasn't fought 3 times in a year since before the UFC back in 2018. Didn't fight 2022 at all. Twice in 2021, once in 2020, a couple of times in 2019. So this guy, listen, Gabriel Santos is great. And sure, if people scored for him, that's fine. But I do think Lerone Murphy is a guy who's going to, if not be a contender, stick around in the UFC featherweight division for at least a few years and just be giving people tough fights for a while. So I thought you were going to go with him against the MMA gods.
I mean, he's already won. He's already won that battle. So
that's true. This is true.
He's already done it. All right. So for the next 10 or 15 minutes, let's get your picks in the chat. We'll pull them up. We'll react to them.
Let me quickly shout out a couple of first timers. Crypto Crabs on Twitter. Keep the martial arts separated in his profile. Excellent work. I agree. Just one pick. Yanal Ashmuz versus Gabriel Mowgli Benitez. That's a big matchup. That's a big veteran matchup, but I like it. And Herman from Twitter. Edwards versus Colby. Don't think it should happen. Probably will. Gaethje Poirier 2. I'm not going to read all these. Sorry, Herman. Maia versus Hebus. Vettori Cannonier. I just ripped this guy off, really. Let's be honest. Shore versus Ige. Maia versus Surgery. And Mike, thank you for the great work to both of you, AK and Mike, as well as the whole MMA fighting team. Found your YouTube channel about a year ago, and it made MMA even more enjoyable for me. Thank you very much. So a little bit of positivity before we get into the picks, which are hopefully will also be positive.
Very nice. Thank you very much. All right, let's get into this. A lot of people want to see Leon versus Bilal, and if this is Bellator, this is the fight we would get. They are a meritocratic promotion. The UFC is not, and that's where we're at right now.
It's the truth. That's true.
Muhammad Bakayev versus Jed Meshew for refusing to hit flyweight unders. I don't think Muhammad Bakayev is a human being, AK. That was insane.
He probably should have tapped to something to. And listen, if there's a little controversy in round 1 that maybe that injured shoulder of his was getting tweaked a bit. It did look. You saw the video, Mike?
Oh, the tap video?
Yeah,
I saw it. It was very, very weird.
It really. I mean, I don't even say it. I don't want to say it. I don't even want to say it looked like a tap. Like that's a tap. If the ref had seen that, the fight's over. The fight's over. Whether Makayev meant to tap or not, whether it was some involuntary thing, it wasn't like we've seen people do the one, sometimes one, even like a 2, maybe their hand is flailing or something. That's a multiple tap thing. For anyone who hasn't seen it, you guys can just, I'm sure, find on Twitter Makayev tap. Someone did kind of an amateur, they kind of just filmed it on their phone, but it's a very clear view. There's no ambiguity to it. And again, I'm not saying he meant to tap out, even if it was involuntary. But if you're the referee and you saw that, that fight is over, and he is no longer undefeated. So very strange. There'll be a post about it going up on MMA Fighting today. I think I did a little write up about his response. Of course, he denied it. He said no, that wasn't a tap. I definitely didn't tap, and that's fine. You guys can be the judge for yourself. I'm not saying I'm making no aspersions. I'm just saying what I saw, and listen, the referee didn't see it, so it doesn't matter. The official result is Makayev win. He's a very talented guy, tough as hell. But I'm not entirely sure where he goes now. But yes, people, if you're fans of No Bets Barred, he's the one guy that you don't bet a guaranteed flyweight under on, because he is now a bet on him to finish the fight, that it won't go the distance, but not under 1.5 or under 2.5. He's kind of weird in that way. So there you go. Yeah, Jed might have to have words with him.
Michael wants Hamza versus Colby. I mean, that's the fight I think should be made, but it appears, at least according to Dana White, Hamzat's going to 185 and he's going to fight a top 3 guy. So we'll see what happens there. Where the heck's Mike at the hotel lobby? And it is a freaking party down here. Scott McCrate, morning guys. This won't happen, but if I ran things, I would pull Chandler and make Conor Gaethje 1. Gaethje's value far outweighs what he makes. Let this man finally have the Conor payday. What do you think about that? Should your thoughts on maybe an audible being called, AK?
Well, let me tell you something, Scott. Excellent. Thank you for the message. Excellent work. I would say that's very possible. And if I'm Gaethje's team, I'm kind of keeping an eye on the buzz surrounding the taping and what's going on, because up until recently, I will say that recently the Ultimate Fighter series has had a pretty good record of keeping the coaches matchups together, but there was a long stretch. There was a long stretch of seasons where the fights just kept falling through. Either some got injured, the timing just didn't work out. So, I'd say if you look overall, it's probably like 50-50. It's probably like a 50% success rate of having the coaches actually fight each other. So definitely, if you're Gaethje, man, you eye that, because you are the perfect guy to step in. And maybe, and it's not as fortuitous for him if it's Conor who falls out, because again, he just fought Michael Chandler. And it was a great fight. I'm sure fans would like to see it again. If you're Gaethje, you're like, I really feel no reason to revisit that right now. But definitely, if for some reason it's the Chandler side that falls out, I love that suggestion from Scott. I think Gaethje has to be ready. And I'll tell you something, it'd be a weird thing, because fans would probably be looking more forward to Gaethje versus McGregor than Chandler versus McGregor. So I want to see Chandler get that fight too. But now I kind of like Scott's suggestion. I kind of want to see this happen.
Vettori, Cannonier, Dolidze, Duplessis, Maia versus Murphy, O'Neal, Marina Moroz, Gunnar versus Randy Brown, Barberina versus D-Rod, Gaethje versus Dustin 2, Fiziev versus Gamrot, Usman versus Chimaev at 170, 185. Mike Moore. Tons of suggestions right there.
Thank you, Mike Moore.
Jack Shore versus Bryce Mitchell. Welcome Shore to the new division. Bryce Mitchell has a fight. He's fighting JSP, UFC 288.
And he has already been welcomed. He was welcomed by the very predictable Makwan Amirkhani. I saw some
maybe a proper welcome.
At that first round, like I saw like one or two like comments like, oh, maybe moving up to 145 was a mistake. And I'm like, people, you've seen Makwan Amirkhani fight before. Stop it. You've seen him fight before. You know where this is going.
And that's exactly where it went. He's great for like 4.5 minutes, and that's it.
Jed on No Bets Barred said, if you're the kind of person to jump on live betting, and that second after the first round, jump on Jack Shore, put everything you can on Jack Shore to win, and he was right. I think it was, I don't know what I think Amirkhani was like plus 200 or something after the first round, and if you cashed in on that, good for you.
Chimaev versus Vettori from Caleb, not a bad idea for
I love it.
About top 3-4 matchups.
It's just not going to happen. It's just I just don't think it's going to happen. I love I wish it would. I just don't see it happening though.
Tristan, Veronica Hardy, who looked incredible, versus Maria Agapova, Jack Shore, Pat Sabatini, Ashmos versus Rebecki, Roman Dolidze versus Nasruddin Imavov.
Yeah, I saw a lot of that.
I like that one.
I think that's logical for both guys. I think if you're Dolidze and Imavov, you should be working towards that. It makes a lot of sense.
More Vettori versus DDP. I think that's the fight that's got to be made.
Yeah, we had people calling for that last time. DDP versus the winner of Dolidze Vettori, so that makes sense. Yeah.
Barberina versus Nico Price. Can't really get upset about that.
Fight of the night. Let's go.
Gunnar Nelson versus Kevin Lee. Now, Kevin Lee had said in an interview with Helen Lee that the UFC is targeting a matchup between him and Tony Ferguson for the International Fight Week card. Of course, they fought already. Tony finished Kevin Lee for the interim lightweight title a few years back. Kevin Lee back with the UFC. I don't know. I don't know what's true and what isn't. It's not on MMAfighting.com, so we haven't confirmed it, which means that it ain't done. And it's not probably in the works at this point. But what do you think about maybe Gunnar Nelson versus Kevin Lee for Lee's return to the UFC?
First, I'll say I 100% believe what he told Helen Yee, that it is probably being talked about. I don't know if there's any like actually paperwork being thrown out there. I do believe it's being talked about. It just makes a lot of sense for both guys where they are at their stage in their careers. And it'd be fun to have it at 170, so neither guy has to worry about cutting weight. I think making it a lightweight fight is just honestly pointless. Tony's not a lightweight contender anymore. Kevin Lee has always had trouble cutting to 155. He hates it. And the first fight was competitive until it wasn't. So, I'm fine with that. I'd actually like to see that. And then this suggestion of Gunnar Nelson also makes a lot of sense. Like I said, I think they're talking about Tony, but I don't think that's set in stone at all. The thing with Gunnar, again, is how active is he going to be? Because he's the kind of guy, he just takes his time getting back in. He's fought, I think we said once a year the last couple of years. Maybe it's dealing with injuries. Maybe it's, not getting the right matchups. I don't know. I think Kevin Lee would be a great carrot to dangle and a really good matchup for him. But I just don't know where Gunnar is as far as his calendar.
Sean Brady versus Kamaru Usman. That's one that I thought about. Muhammad Maia versus Matt Schnell. Again, sorry for the background noise. Everybody surrounded me. There's a whole lobby where people can sit anywhere, and they're like, "Oh,
every time.
it's a great spot right next to the guy that's clearly doing a show right now."
This happens every time. I want to talk about Makhaev. I got a comment from Liam Perry on Twitter. He says, "I know Makhaev now and officially an enemy of the flyweight unders, but you can't deny his toughness. My leg was hurting watching that submission. A lesser man would have crumbled in position. Time to up the competition." I like this. I have to mention this, Mike. Makhaev versus the Manel Kopp Alex Perez winner, depending how busted up the leg is. So that's true. We do have to see injury, but I like it because Manel Kopp's taking a slight detour from his alliteration assassin tour to fight Alex Perez because it's an important matchup. He needs it, but after that, he needs to get back to assassinating alliterative fighters, and Muhammad Makhaev might be next on that list. So I just want us to keep that in mind. I don't know if it's next, but it feels like they're destined to run into each other.
Shore versus Barboza, Billy Q, AK, the winner of that fight.
That's a big step up, though. That's a big step up from Makwan. I don't know. I don't know if I'm with that one.
Let's see. DeMar wants a Gaethje Oliveira rematch. Sure. Oliveira is fighting obviously Beneil Dariush. Casey O'Neill, Viviane Araújo, AK.
Yeah, I think that's sort of the right step back, as it were. I shouldn't even necessarily say step back, because I think in my rankings I probably have Araújo higher. Yeah, I have them right next. I have Araújo at 12, Casey O'Neill at 13. So yeah, if you're going, listen, this is from Ashutosh Bajpai. If you're going just by MMA math, that to me adds up.
It's so loud. Ashmas versus Ishmael Bonfim. That's a pretty good fight.
That's the second person to recommend that. So
I like that fight.
Yeah.
Vettori versus Allen, battle of elite middleweights, and Fiziev versus Turner for the vibes. A lot of Fiziev Turner.
I thought about that. The only thing is, and this shouldn't matter because both guys, whatever happens, they still have bright futures ahead of them. I don't like the optics of one of them being put on a 2-fight losing streak. Again, that's a terrible reason not to make a fight, because that fight is awesome. But that's the only reason I shied away from it, because Jalen Turner actually was my first thought, and then I was like, I'd like to see them both find a way to get back in the winning column, as it were.
What else do we have? Brian Barberita versus Ian Gary, AK.
I feel like this has been suggested many times, and I'm totally down with it. I think that's a really tough test for Ian Gary, but we're at the point where we need to test Ian Gary. He's 4-0 in the UFC. I don't know if that kind of crept up on people, and I know he's not fighting like top 30 guys, so that 4-0 doesn't like tell the whole story. But this is the kind of guy who we're going to keep saying, well, he's only 25, he's only 26, only 27, and we're matching him up with, again, lower tier guys, and eventually he's going to be like 28, 29, 30, and then are we going to wait that long before we give him some of these veteran names? So I like the matchup a lot. It's definitely a big step up, but very good suggestion though.
Jack Shore versus Dan Ige. What do you think about that?
I don't know why. Ige is arguably as much of a tough step up as Bryce Mitchell, but I kind of like that one. I kind of like Ige more. Maybe it's because he's older, and I think Shore has a chance to like that gap could be in his that age gap could be in his benefit, but it's also a tough matchup. So it's weird. It's hard to explain. I like the Ige matchup for some reason. I like the Bryce Mitchell matchup less. Both of them are really, really tough tests for Jack Shore, but Jack Shore, he might be due for a tough, a big leap in competition just because he hasn't looked bad in the UFC so far. I mean, other than a few lost rounds here or there, but he looks, like as he was hyped to be. So you might only be able to push him up and up and up.
Jake Hadley versus Charles Johnson. I like that fight. Jake Hadley real good. That body shot was friggin' nasty.
He got a bonus, right? No, he didn't get a bonus.
Jake Hadley got a bonus. Yeah,
he did get
Ashmas didn't get a bonus. He deserved one more than anybody.
He was a pretty considerable underdog too, so that was kind of screwed up. Charles Johnson is fighting Cody Durden. We should say he is fighting Cody Durden April 29th. Looks like it's an 8 card. So, but not a bad idea though.
O'Neal versus Molly McCann, AK.
Wow,
interesting.
I don't know. I obviously I didn't matchmake for Casey O'Neill. I don't know if I would have even thought of that. But again, that makes a lot of sense. And I would think people are sort of looking ahead to the next London card as well. And I'm sure Casey O'Neill wants to get back in there soon. So yeah, it's a good suggestion.
Jai Herbert versus Terrence McKinney from James.
Good stuff.
That's a good
like
fight.
It. Yep.
Gunnar versus Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland is booked right now against Santiago Ponzinibbio. 3 weeks, April 8th, UFC 287. That one's going down. Another Wonder Boy versus Kamaru pick.
It's out there, man. It's out there.
Sean Brady's not good at all. I didn't pull it up. How dare you? Covington versus McGregor. Maia beats the Tim Elliott test, though. Tim Elliott is booked against Alan Nascimento in June. So maybe the timelines line up depending on how bad Makhaev's leg is.
Yeah. Makhaev said he wanted that one. He wanted the Tim Elliott fight. He was actually disappointed that when he heard Elliott was booked against Nascimento. I have Sylvester Correa saying Veronica Hardy versus Joanne Wood. If anyone can answer this question, I was wondering, is this the first time two women who have changed their names via marriage have fought in the UFC after having previously fought under fight on the same card after having previously fought under a different name? You know, we knew Veronica Hardy as Veronica Macedo before, and of course we knew Joanne Wood as Joanne Calderwood before, and they had very lengthy Joanne Wood had a very lengthy UFC career as Joanne Calderwood before becoming Wood in the last couple of years, and Veronica Macedo was, just came back from a long layoff and was Macedo before and came back as Hardy. So I don't know if a card has ever had two women fighters who had changed their names after marriage. I know this is a completely useless stat. I apologize for wasting everyone's time, but if anyone knows the answer, go ahead and throw that in the comments. I'll keep an eye on it.
I think we're kind of getting to the end because I'm seeing Derek Lewis versus Cody Garbrandt matchmaking suggestions, which is hilarious. Maia versus Andrade, I just saw. Andrade is booked, by the way. She's fighting Yan Jonan. Let's see. A lot of Hamzat suggestions. Another Brady Usman. Let's see. Do we have anything else? Veronica Hardy versus Antonina Shevchenko, AK.
Antonina, she hasn't looked bad lately. Mike, your favorite fighter, Antonina Shevchenko. What happened in her most recent fight? I have no memory of this. She beat Courtney Casey by split decision. Yes, and one of the, I'm sure, most memorable fights of 2022. It's good. Yeah, I don't know where to go with Veronica Hardy because she could be a completely different fighter from the one we first saw. Juliana Miller turned out to be a much better matchup than we thought. There's just that experience gap between the two of them, and listen, Juliana's that was like her fifth pro fight or something like that. So there's going to be consistency issues early on. Sorry, that was her fifth pro fight. And Veronica Hardy, to her credit, looked like the more experienced fighter, the more well-rounded fighter, the more seasoned fighter. And I don't know where to go with her. Maybe she's good. I don't know if she's good enough to fight the top 20, at 125 pounds, or if she should stay around sort of that range, sort of that lower tier range that she just fought on Saturday. So yeah, you can go really in any direction with Veronica Hardy.
Casey O'Neill versus Tracy Cortez, AK. What do you think about that?
I like, this loss to Jennifer Maia is going to hurt. I understand it. Of course, I'm sure it hurts. Everyone wants to be undefeated. Nobody wants to lose when they have this chance to take a top 10 spot when they're coming back from a long layoff. All these eyes on her. But this loss might actually have been a good thing for her. It's not like she looked horrible. I think Jennifer Maia just looked really good. And we just saw, how much further Casey O'Neill kind of has to go to get to that level. And that's fine. So this loss, I think, is one she's really going to bounce back from. And again, it kind of recalibrates our matchmaking expectations for her. So maybe the Tracy Cortez, that range is the better a better spot for her. So it's a good suggestion from Oscar Lara.
All right, last one, then we're gonna go because the noise is getting crazy. This might be the winner. This might be the low key best matchup of all of them. Now there's the popular ones, but I just saw this one from the Druzio, and I just got fired up. Ashbrook versus Trevor Peek, AK. Gosh. Let's go.
Israel versus Arkansas? Fight. What's Trevor Peek? Arkansas yes. Or Alabama? Arkansas. Israel versus Arkansas. Let's go. It's the matchup the world wants to see. I'd love to see the two guys hanging out before. I'm imagining some amazing clash of cultures there. But that's a great fight. And that's the right range too. Both guys very early in their careers, both well known in the UFC now. Both brought a ton of excitement to their debuts, and a sophomore meeting for those guys would be fantastic. So that's great. Love it.
I love it as well. All right, we're gonna get out of here. You guys are great. Thank you so much.
But, Mike, let me tell people, because we often get a lot of first-time viewers with this, and I had someone ask me today how to send us picks. So please, you guys can hit me up on Twitter at Alexander K. Lee. Again, we didn't read a lot of those today, but we normally do on non-pay-per-view shows. At Alexander K. Lee on Twitter, at Alexander KK Lee on the Instagrams, alex.lee@espionation.com for my email. You can hit me up on any of those. Mike, they can hit you up
underscore heck JR on IG. Just shoot me a DM there, and we will get your picks on the program.
I butchered that. M underscore heck JR. Yes.
So we'll be back next week for the pod, recapping UFC San Antonio. We got Marlon Vera, Corey Sandhagen, Holly Holm versus Yana Kunitskaya, now Yana Santos. Landwehr, Nate Landwehr, Austin Lingo, Andrea Lee, Macy Barber, Alex Perez, Vidal Kopp. Can't wait for that one. Chidi and Jokwani versus Albert Durayev. Daniel Pineda back against Tucker Lutz. Stephen Peterson, Lucas Alexander, Trevin Giles, Preston Parsons. CJ Vergara versus Daniel Da Silva. Manuel Torres versus Trey Ogden. Benicia Salvador versus Victor Altamirano. And Tamiris Vidal versus Haley Cowan. That is UFC San Antonio, everybody. So we'll be back next week to recap that card, and that's it. UFC 286 in the books, and in 20 days, it'll be UFC 287 time. So thank you all very much. Appreciate you joining us. Always remember, don't take this stuff too seriously. MMA is supposed to be fun. We'll have more fun next week right here on to the Next One, the podcast. Good night, everybody.